you have?
Just my brother, younger brother.
And so then you go to St. Petersburg, and you were there total for 2 years in Russia?
Yeah.
Wow, it's a long time.
Yeah, I actually fell in love with someone in Siberia, and we moved to St. Petersburg together, and I got a job at a newspaper.
And you were what? You were like what, 20, 19?
23.
You fell in love with a Russian?
23, 24. I did, yeah.
What happened to that guy?
This is going to sound like fiction, but he's a Russian Orthodox priest.
You look what you did.
He's I know. He has a very long beard.
Really?
He is. Talk about him in the past tense. He's a really brilliant guy, very into, honestly, like occult things. And then somehow that shifted into an interest in religion, which of course had been banned for so long, like while he was growing up. And he just became more and more fascinated with religion while we were dating. And then several years after we broke up, he decided to become a priest.
You dated a Russian witch who found
yes.
that just piecemeal interest in occult ritual was not working out, and there was a much deeper, more historical type of magic that seems to be more reliable. But you get to dress as a wizard.
You've summed it up.
Good. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad he's found his wizardship.
Yes.
Are you in touch?
No. Several years ago, he Facebook friended me, and then we corresponded a little bit, and then he disappeared from Facebook.
Oh, I wonder what happened.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay. It's so weird because rarely does anything coming out of Russia disappear from Facebook. It seems to just
it's probably there somewhere on the dark
over
Facebook.
Yeah. Okay, so you come back here and then you decide to commit to acting. Is that what happens?
Yeah, when I came back to Seattle because it was near my hometown, and a lot of friends from college had moved to Seattle.
But hold on one second, real quick.
Yeah,
were you studying acting in Russia or no?
No, I did not.
At all.
Although I did work. I went to the theater all the time, and I worked as a theater reviewer for a little bit. But I was not studying. You
know John Bernthal, the actor?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he learned to act in Russia.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Was it through that Harvard program?
Yeah.
Or did he? Yeah. No, that program sounds incredible. Oh, I wish I had been able to.
The only problem was when he got back, he was like, you guys don't know how to act. Harvard sent him there, but he comes back and he was just sort of like, you're a bunch of weenies. You don't know what real men do when they act. So he's like,
I get that.
Yeah.
I mean, really, also they get to rehearse their plays for 7 months before they go on stage, where because of capitalism, we get the 3.5 weeks,
Yeah, and it's make or break.
They throw you onto the stage and see what happens. Yeah.
3.5 months and then maybe a week.
Yes.
If things don't go well.
Right.
Did you ever study Suzuki?
I did, yeah.
I'm so wild that I fucking knew that, man. You know how I knew?
How did you know that? No.
I do know how. You want to know how I knew?
Okay.
How you act out your crying and when you hold your core to find your center. When you put your hand on your stomach.
Wow.
And then the way you stopped when you were doing the crying. I'm like, she did Suzuki. There's no way that woman didn't do Suzuki. Because I had an ex-wife of mine studied it. And I was able to see it. I was able to go and watch it being done. And I'm like, that's got to be where she got that.
That's amazing. I feel so exposed.
How many people are like, that Suzuki lady? That lady did the Suzuki. That's so wild. I'm so happy that I was right.
Yeah, that's really, you kind of took me off guard there.
That's what did it?
I was like, did he do some kind of a deep dive? But there's no record of me doing Suzuki.
No,
I made sure to scrub the internet clean of all of that. So.
I saw it in practice.
You did, apparently. Wait, was this your wife from Seattle?
Nope.
Ah, okay. Because there is a lot of Suzuki in Seattle.
No, it was my first wife went on to become a therapist, but she was studying to be an actress, and she was kind of dug in with that. I mean, she was doing the Suzuki training, and I never quite got it, but over time, she explained it to me, and then I went to see them, where they, let the family and friends come in to watch a performance to reassure you it's not a cult or something too fucking weird.
Right.
And you just,
but it's not convincing, right?
No, yeah, it's like I got it. You know what I mean? I understood the technique, but it is sort of rare and it's specific, and I don't think a lot of people know about it.
Right?
Right? Did you study at New York?
No, actually in Seattle.
Oh, wow.
There, we're just a couple amazing teachers at University of Washington that I studied with, first in high school, actually, and then in Seattle.
But it was interesting how effective it is, because however you've trained yourself as an actress, everybody takes a bit from here and there, but I was so clearly able to lock into those two actions, which were fairly, intense and, emotional and powerful, both the way you cry, the acting that out, but also just the other device of centering, in moments of emotion where I see you do it, you kind of align yourself, and that, so it is a powerful method.
It's interesting because I was working on the play, these two books were really important to me. One of them is called Trauma and Recovery, and the other is The Body Keeps the Score, which is a book all about how trauma lives in your body, and also inherited trauma lives in your body. So I think that kind of idea was with me the whole time I was rehearsing the play, of thinking I do talk about at one point in the play, like the places in the play where my throat, I could feel it tense up. I was actually pretty tense the whole time I was performing, and kind of trying to figure out where that came from and why. Just thinking about it, kind of in a way, thinking about the play as a little bit of an exorcism of some of that stuff out of my body.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that, from my recollection of Suzuki, that seems to be a very decent method to exercise.
Yes. I think that's right. Well, it's very physical, and there's a lot of releasing of things. Yeah. There's a lot of grunting and stomping.
Right. Man. But that's interesting. What are those two books again?
One is called Trauma and Recovery. The other is The Body Keeps the Score. Trauma and Recovery is, I think, one of the most brilliant, I guess, psychoanalytic texts. It was actually recommended to me by my husband's therapist via my husband many, many years ago. But one of the things it talks about is it actually makes the connection between this therapist worked a lot both with military veterans who were grappling with PTSD and with sexual assault survivors.
Right.
And she noticed the similarities between the two kinds of symptoms and what both groups were going through, and sort of made a larger connection through that about violence in our culture and the way it affects both people who go to war on behalf of the country and the victims of violence and sexual assault in the country, which are often women. And she delves into that.
That's interesting.
In a really profound way. Yeah.
And then that sort of combined with the idea of hereditary behavioral, like I think it was interesting in the show how, you don't find it necessary to define why the darkness is in you. That, is it a legacy of abuse that goes back generations that causes this depression, or is it chemical? And does it matter?
Right. Right.
It is what it is ultimately,
Yes.
but to have the framework to think about that, to think about, because that's fascinating. There's no way it isn't true that even if you break the cycle of abuse, the emotional nature that is underpinning to somebody who is willing to put up with that or is an abuser is still going to be in you. You just, you just evolve to make different choices on purpose.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, you evolve to make different choices. I will also say you have different, I mean, I question a little bit the phrase like someone who's willing to put up with it, because I feel like, I mean, this is one of the things that I discovered making the play is like, I'm in part able to make many different choices than my grandmother because like the legal framework of my life is much different than hers. I have different laws protecting me. Yeah. And also like the culture has evolved, thank God.
And don't underestimate the power of terror, fear, right? Yeah, it was my mistake.
Oh, yes, right.
So
and
I can
would say,
reframe
obviously,
that.
Yeah. No, but I think, I'm only calling it out because I feel like it's what I grew up thinking. Like, oh, what was wrong with my grandmother that she stayed in this relationship, and now I understand I understand it I have a much larger perspective. I understand it as it relates to the laws of our country, as it relates to our culture, as it relates to the misogyny in our culture. And then, of course, it's just true for many women today. And because of the play, I've been able to talk to a lot of people who've been in relationships like this now, and really understanding that you can think that you're a person who would never end up in this kind of relationship and discover that you're absolutely wrong, and that it doesn't always have to do with there being something, it's not always about you. Abusers are often incredibly charming people who don't sort of show their true nature until you're very much connected to them.
Right. And right. I mean, like, I think that when I was younger, I was an emotionally abusive person, and
You do?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And it took me, a lot of, heartbreak and, willingness to, figure out where that comes from, where that fear ultimately and that kind of inability to connect emotionally in an appropriate way comes from, and it is family stuff. But over time, not unlike recovery, from alcohol and drugs, you learn to make different choices and you start to see, if you're willing, who you are, in that dynamic and what that is,
And how do you, you don't have to say what it was, but is there I guess, like, how old were you when you sort of started to realize that, and did something push you toward that realization?
I was really just a defensive, kind of ragey guy who always thought, he was being fucked with or manipulated, was not able to trust love or wasn't really capable of letting myself give it in a way. It was all kind of childish stuff, but, childish rage when you're 35 is a very ugly thing, right?
Right.
And I think ultimately the beginning of the education was, once I got sober and I entered into a relationship with a woman who helped me get sober in a state that was already volatile, I made her miserable and, and I was emotionally destructive and she had to, extricate herself from me.
Right.
Right. Through Al-Anon and through understanding codependency and me understanding all these, whatever the labels are. It was like that was the beginning of the awakening, but it took a while to sort of reel it in.
It's sort of about deciding to kind of reckon with yourself, right?
Well, you got to decide it as opposed to keep repeating it, right? You got, because people are broken from a fairly young age, and it's like, either you're going to be able to fucking stop it or not. But usually I think these injuries that create these monsters are put upon people when they're fucking children.
Oh, yes.
And then,
absolutely.
And then the wiring is there. And, and if you keep honoring the wiring and finding participants to honor that wiring with you, there's not much impetus to change until you end up alone or crying or in jail or whatever the fuck range of abuse you're on,
I think the hardest thing for me is, and I've been in therapy for almost 15 years now.